Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. The third item, as you can see, is communication from the public. Oh, yes, sorry, roll call.
Smith.
Here.
Hauser. Anderson. Here. Schmidt. Here.
Next item is communication from the public. And so if we have people who would like to visit with us, could you hold up your hand? Okay. Now, there are conditions. There's John. There are conditions that we have set on directing communication to us. 5-minute time limit. Please make sure to say your name, where you live, have to be inside the district. And I would also point out that this is our maiden voyage on actually streaming live. So keep in mind, anything you can say and will be used in the Okay, so go ahead.
Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Todd Pulowski,
Kristen Pulaski.
and we live at 4515 88th Street in Urbandale. My wife, Kristen, has taught at Karen Acres Elementary for the past 20 years. We have a 6th grade son who has previously attended Valerius Elementary and currently have a 1st and 4th grade daughters at Valerius. Prior to this year, I volunteered as Valerius PTO president for 2 years, working with a small dedicated group trying to support the staff in our community. I had a long ways to go, so I better do this. We are here tonight to show our support for the Valerius staff and to express a few concerns as well as ask questions. We understand you cannot address them tonight, but are hopeful that you will follow up will occur in the future. We are saddened by the many staff changes experienced at Valerius in the short 6 years we have been there. I'm not sure if you are aware that during that same amount of time, more than 40 staff members have come and gone from Valerius. There have been 5 different 1st grade teachers in the past 6 years. Next year, 1st grade will again have 2 different teachers and a new one in kindergarten as well. That is 7 different 1st grade teachers in 7 years. In a building the size of Valerius, there is such a great opportunity to create a strong community with staff and families. But the constant changes make it challenging for people to feel confident about their decision to establish their roots in our neighborhood. I ask myself, why is this occurring? Although some staff may have retired or left to follow a spouse to a new job, in general, do these turnover rates line up with other buildings? Is the district doing enough to support and retain its staff? We find it troubling to hear from one of our daughters during dinner conversation that her class has been experiencing room clears due to student behavior issues. One day it even occurred 3 times. She said they spend the time in the hallway or library until it's all clear. Then they return to the classroom. There have been times when the desks have been tipped over and items have been ripped down. We would welcome insight into the district's policy on how they approach these situations and the guidance and support teachers are receiving in order to maintain a safe learning environment. Is the turnover rate of special ed associates having negative consequences for some of our higher at-risk students, which carry over and impacts the overall classroom? It has been previously shared with the school board that Urbandale has continued to improve the ability to fill daily substitute openings. However, we can share that the sub shortage has negatively impacted Valerius 4th grade class on more than one occasion. There have been times where an all-day sub was not available, so multiple staff attempted to cover the class. If no coverage was available, they even had reached the point where a class was split up and part of them were added to the other 4th grade section while the other students were sent to a completely different grade level for the day. As a parent, we struggle to understand how there could be a time when nobody was available to cover the class. We know the teachers are working hard, well beyond their expected instructional material. This past fall, children who were identified as needing additional support as a result of their SABRS assessment were required to be put on a chart. Teachers needed to record tallies and score the child in 3 different categories every 30 minutes all day. How do we know this? Because our child was on one of these charts. How do teachers find the time to effectively do this charting plus deliver the actual instruction? From our perspective, the staff have seemed overwhelmed and stressed trying to juggle these new processes. What kind of data is being gathered? and how is it put to use? How is the district meeting the social, emotional challenges students face today, and how are they supporting the teachers on this journey? The Valeria staff and community mean a lot to us. They are family. They share a special place in helping all of us raise our kids during these ever so important early years. We should expect and fight for the best we can give them. We question if the school district is doing enough listening to the staff and then acting on what they have heard. Are we providing the proper support to help the staff achieve the overall mission of teaching all, reaching all? We can all do better. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I wasn't going to talk, but I guess I just wanted to echo Todd's statements there. So
Can you tell us your name
Yep.
and your
Eric
address?
Cannon, 2727, or sorry, 9114 Tanglewood Drive. Used to do this for my job here, but here in Urbandale. And I also have a sixth grader that went through Hilarious all the way through. Fourth grader that's currently there, and a kindergarten son. We've experienced a lot of the same issues and concerns and questions when we do raise these concerns at conferences, when we talk to teachers. My wife's also here. She volunteers within the fourth grade classroom on Tuesdays. A lot of the responses we get back from staff is that our hands are tied. We don't know what to do. We have these room clears that we constantly hear about at home. And I just question the minutes, the hours, the days that these kids are losing from an educational standpoint, because there is no structure, there is no plan in place, it appears to be, to manage these situations that keep arising every time within the classrooms. I know this is a problem in fourth grade. I know it's a problem in other grades from what we've heard through other parents. And I guess the other thing is we don't see the communication coming down to parents. We hear about it through our students, which how do I explain that to a student? How do I justify that? How do I tell them it's going to be okay? They're dealing with it. They're making it better. When there doesn't seem to be that resolution that's happening. And I guess it comes down to, I don't know who's accountable. I don't know where the leadership's at in this. And that's probably the biggest concern that we have as parents is there's not communication coming to us to help, communicate this to our kids and tell them how we should be dealing with these situations and what they should be expecting. But then, as parents, we're not getting that information back either. And I just would like to see some level of accountability, I guess, across the board to at least help us understand why things are happening, the decisions that are being made to try to deal with these situations, and what plan is in place to try and make this better. Because I have a kindergartner son that I hope's there for the next 5 years. And I know there's going to be some changes with the schools and everything, which is exciting. And we talk about our neighborhood and the families that have come in. We've lived in that Valerius neighborhood for almost 16 years. We've seen it from an older demographic to all these young families coming in, which is very exciting. But then to see these challenges being brought forth through the elementary school dedicated to this part of town is concerning. And I don't want that to be a stigma for our neighborhood. I don't want that to be a stigma for our school. I want it to be a source of pride. And so I guess that'd be the question that we would ask tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, the next item is actually information only. It will be dealt with at a future meeting in April. But the data is there for anyone who chooses to go through it and for the board. Okay. So the next situation here is a facilities update. I'm assuming Eric or Steve?
Basically, all I have in there at this time is last week we met for the fitness center and high school renovations. I met with all the contractors of that. Basically, met with DLR leading the way, and again, John was there, of course, our internal. Basically, we walked through all the expectations of the process, all the non-negotiables as far as the employees on site, how it's going to work, what the schedule is going to look like. Pretty exciting. If you look at the packet, you have the packet of, for once, we have a timeline to really see when the work will be done. It's very, very exciting if you look at it. Even the enclosure of the building will basically be, what is it? Is that 8.2? So July already. It's easy to think that it'll be enclosed as far as the fitness center at that point. And again, we'll talk more a little bit tonight about the HVAC, which is a part of that, but there are other renovations taking place, such as the restroom. Of course, the concession stand won't take place yet because that'll be part of the enclosed fitness center, but very exciting to see the timeline and again, have everybody at the table understanding what the expectations are. And of course, one of the biggest ones is we need to be on time, especially as weather allows. DLR will do everything in their power to keep the contractors moving forward, and because once one group is behind, that puts the whole project down. So very exciting. That's probably the biggest news happening. We have a couple meetings yet this week with the district facilities team. So progress is still being made, even though again, not all of it is up front at this time, but a lot still happening behind the scenes. I'll take any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Okay, so our first action item is to approve the an engagement letter with the Hollers Law Firm concerning our counsel for the bonds and issuances over the course of next year. How long does this go?
It's the
This is,
2019 Go
yeah, this
Series
is-
funds.
Okay,
so,
so do I have a motion to approve this?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the engagement letter.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's unanimous. This next motion has been a long time in coming.
Sorry about that.
Few issues in
Yeah,
that.
so David Stokes is here to talk about our the Natural Gas Consortium Award.
I'll explain it real quick. Right now, the school district is served by 3 different gas suppliers. Mid-American Energy Utility, Mid-American Energy Services, which is their unregulated, and CenterPoint Energy. Des Moines schools started a while back looking at rebidding their supply. We did that a couple years ago. That worked out well. This last round, they wanted to expand to include, we've got Des Moines, Johnston, Urbandale, North Polk, say a lot of different school districts. That bid went out in November, came back. They got a lower price than what they had previously received. So part of what I do for you is each month I go through, look at the bills, make sure they're accurate, and then track a savings, which is the sheet that you have. This year, savings are negative. You're paying more than what you would have if you would have stayed with the utility. So I took those numbers and just, it's rare that it happens during winter, but it does happen. So I went back and looked at the same period for 17, 18, 16, 17, all the way back. Every other year it's been pretty strong savings. Did a little more research. The smallest meters that we have on here are the Homestead, Karen Acres, and Rolling Green meters. They are 22% of your load, but they are 52% of those negative savings. Homestead we're dropping off at the end of the year for reconstruction. The other 2, Karen Acres and Rolling Green, would be added to a CenterPoint contract. CenterPoint is currently serving Webster Middle School and High School. Another thing I did is I went back. The last time this happened was in 2014. In February and March of 2014, same thing happened with the cold. It got colder than normal, sooner than expected. So that sends the market going crazy. We're finally kind of easing out, which I've looked at some of your February numbers for Webster Middle School and High School, and they're all back in the positive. I haven't seen the Mid-American numbers yet. So what we're looking at doing is we basically got 3 options. The one that we're recommending is the CenterPoint contract. Second option would be to do nothing and the current contracts will roll. I would definitely not recommend that one. And the third one would be send all of the meters back to utility service, which if you do that, you wouldn't be allowed to purchase on the third-party market for 12 months. So it's a lot of information, and I kind of want to open up for questions, just, it can be, it's a confusing thing if you don't understand what's going on, so. If you have questions, fire away.
Can you mention those three options?
Okay, the first one, which is the one that's recommended, is take the CenterPoint contract. It came in lower than it was that you're currently on, so you'll see savings right up there. Second option would be to do nothing, and those contracts will roll with CenterPoint or Mid-American, and that's definitely not recommended. Or the third option would be to send all of the meters back to utility service and not participate in the unregulated gas market.
And the sheet you just gave us currently spreading 13, 14 up through current is based.
Based on the same data, the same usage that we have for the same period.
Okay.
So I'm trying to like go back and just show it does happen, but over the course of time, you're generally better off. It's just kind of right through some of the balls. Within that option, we can go out and do some hedging where you actually fix a price. And that would just lock in a rate. It could be, I have no idea what the utility rates are going to be, but it would kind of smooth out the bills. If that is an option, that's something we could talk to Mary Beth and John about. Those are options for you.
Have you guys thought about hedging, Steve? No?
I hadn't known actually that's an option.
So what's the basis on it says administration recommends approving the natural gas consortium board. What's the basis on approving or recommending this for approval?
The CenterPoint.
To CenterPoint, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
I guess based on what he's saying, that over time, that this was kind of an anomaly.
Okay.
That was. And, I guess we have two more months of data than when I originally wrote that, and we just kept bringing it forward.
Right.
So,
Right.
But even knowing that, I still would concur with your view that this was an anomaly and over time.
The program you were previously under, which I think we did a historical look at that, and it was not even as good as this.
Do we have that as far as one?
I'd have to go back and look, because that was way back when we first started looking. It's, I won't say risk, but just historically, over time, it's shown to be savings for these schools. So I would say we're going to keep tracking and watch this, which it hasn't been done before. So that if something's not looking right, we can find out and then take corrective action, which could be potentially, even next year, if things are not looking well, talk to the CenterPoint and drop out. So.
Oh, we can do that.
We could talk to them about it. Yeah, there's no guarantee that we couldn't break the contract and go to another supplier, but if we wanted to send the meters back to utility, they have been allowing schools to do that.
It's just a 24-month.
It's a
period
24-month, right? Yep.
On the basis of that, I'll move to approve CenterPoint.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
And this data, I send it to Mary Beth every month, so if you want to see it, or if you have questions,
Yeah,
that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you guys do this stuff.
Yeah, this was originally supposed to happen on the 25th of February, which was a markedly different climate outside than it is now.
Yes, it's getting a lot nicer.
Mhm.
And these numbers, and that's kind of what I do want to point out. It's like if you say January savings or January month, that's generally December usage. So we're going to start seeing some big numbers still roll through for the next few months just because it's been so cold.
So do you think that there will be an impact when Homestead doesn't exist next winter? I mean, will we see a significant?
Yeah, they'll drop, yeah, because their volumes are low and they've been moving away from, they're with Mid-American Retail, and their pricing structure is not nearly as friendly as the Centerpoint structure.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm glad you made it finally.
Yes. Been a heck of a winter.
And our next item is the approval of the security entrances for Webster in the high school. Eric?
Evening, everybody. So last month, we brought to you schematic design documents for the elementary and the high school entry design. And what this is again, this is a reminder to improve that you have secure facilities, but this is to improve the access and the entryway to the front of the building there, as well as on the document there, you're seeing the existing condition on the left and the revised condition on the right. You can see just some minor tweaks at the vestibule. But then in the classroom, immediately adjacent to that on the left side, we are also removing the tiers out of the computer lab and converting that to a general or special ed classroom. So these are the construction documents that have begun. That's what happens in the design development stage. It's not as beautiful or flashy as some of the other presentations that we've done before, but nonetheless necessary to accomplish the goal. At the high school, you can see on there, we're creating this kind of a super lobby. So the main vestibule stays intact, which is pushed out to on the left-hand side of that screen there, which is pushed to the forward, to the exterior. We are creating a larger lobby area by introducing a new set of doors. So I'll go up here and show everybody. Across here. So this will become a secure area, and then we're introducing an entry into the main office with a stair. ADA will still be accommodated because entry or access can happen here through the security system, voice control and video. They could be buzzed through here and then use the ramping to get to the rest of the high school. So again, you have secure entries right now. This is just the next level and providing additional opportunity for contact to a staff member. One of the other things that we were doing is, if you remember, in relation to the elementary school, we did have an alternate for some security glazing. We're also going to do that alternate here, just to provide you with the opportunity to understand what that cost ramification would be, and it's your choice whether or not to accept it. The next milestone that we would have is at your April 8th board meeting. You would be establishing a bid date and public hearing. The bid date would be May 14th, and that will also coincide with the next project that you'll discuss here. And then your public hearing will be on May 6th.
Yeah, those are great. I'll move to approve the design development approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thanks. Okay. So now we're looking at the HVAC for the athletic area, the gyms, locker rooms. This one? Or we're drawing?
Yep.
Okay.
Oops, sorry, the other one.
Yeah, drawings, yeah.
That's in case you have insomnia at night. All right. So again, for those in the room, students at the high school, the HVAC area at the south and east portion of the high school, namely the north and south gyms, the associated locker room areas. We are doing renovation right now for the new fitness center that will happen on the west side. But as a separate project, we're taking care of the HVAC and the indoor environmental aspects and the remainder of that area. So again, these are the construction documents that are started, and then the associated specification, which was a document that you saw before. This will basically replace all of the HVAC equipment in this end of the building to provide better indoor air quality and monitoring. The other thing that will happen is at the very north, on the left photo there, at the very north corner, yep, right there, there's a boiler room that has the last remaining large boiler for the school that will be replaced to a high efficiency condensing boiler. Let's see, all the locker rooms and the restrooms will get new ventilation. So for those that have gone in there and almost passed out, that should be corrected. Okay. So that in a nutshell is really, it's just the HVAC portion. All the other upgrades that are happening there are related to the fitness center. And as Steve mentioned, the fence is up. So if you haven't seen that, drive by. They are getting ready any moment now to break ground. And that will be a busy end of the building for this entire summer, because not only will the building attempt to be enclosed by August, we'll see how wet of the spring we have, but the center area there between the north and south gym, those restrooms are anticipated to be complete for the start of school. Again, playing by ear, how that all goes with utilities that need to service on the exterior. But that entire area will be busy. I know both gyms are getting resurfaced or sanded and resealed this summer, and then new bleachers on the north gym. So if you walk through there, be careful.
That's exciting. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'm going to approve the design development approval.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. This is it? Okay. Yeah, so it recommends, okay, so we will actually vote on this now.
You said April 22nd.
I would set the public hearing date for April 22nd, and then at that point, we have the public hearing and then we vote yes or no to amend the budget.
All right. So this right now is an informational item, or do we need to take action?
We need to take action to
Yeah,
set
we
the
need to set the
public
public
hearing
hearing.
date.
Okay. So do I have a motion to set the public hearing for the April 22nd for next year's budget?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, there we go. We had a minor mistake when we set the calendar for at the end of the year with Rolling Green, so can you point out what the changes are?
Basically, we missed a day in there, so students at Rolling Green will have one makeup day like the rest of the district. That would be Friday, May 24th. The reason they are not added on like the traditional calendar, the rest of the district, basically, other than Rolling Green, is that on their calendar, they have two dates that are already listed as potential inclement weather makeups. So that'd be the first day. And then, like the traditional calendar, the certified professional staff would have to have basically to make up there's 3 snow days. So again, the makeup day, one of them is the student makeup on the 24th. Another one is that they would have a professional development day on Friday, June 14th. And then their other one, just like the traditional staff that the board has approved, they would have an option of 2 things, either to log in the equivalents of 8 hours during the last 3 weeks of school, which is from May 27th to June 14th, outside regular school hours and chunks of time of 2 hours or more, or if the staff individually choose, they could come back on Monday, June 17th to make up that 3rd day.
So do I have a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's unanimous. Okay, so the next item is board report, superintendent's report, HR.
Yeah, I don't think that we didn't have any board reports.
All right. So, the Honorable Mr. Lane.
Maggie and I are here for any questions. I'd start off with just pointing out, I think, a few key things in the report that you received in the packet. On the first page, in relation to our staffing, certified teachers, counselors, and nurses, this school year, the 18-19 school year, we had an increase in the number of teaching staff that we have in the district, from 331 individuals in teaching roles to 334 for the 2018-2019 school year. Some of the factors contributing to increase this year were the addition of a section of kindergarten at Jensen. We worked last year to address some Chapter 12 requirement changes that put us in a position to have 1.5 FTE of health at the middle school. That were new positions for this school year. We also increased at the middle school of a half-time position of EL teacher, and then have increased both in secondary instrumental and vocal music, a 0.5 in instrumental music and a 0.25 in vocal music. I think a key addition because of our 0.25 vocal music increase was the opportunity to provide an AP music theory course for the first time this school year that we were excited about. This school year, we had 32 new teachers and 2 new administrators. That 32 new teachers is pretty typical for what we have had over the last 5 to 6 years. Our highest remains a few years ago after we had offered early retirement. We had 43 new teachers that school year, but typically it has been right around 30 to 35 new teachers to start a school year. Another celebration that is on that first page is just I always appreciate our teachers' efforts to promote their own learning and to be lifelong learners, and we have increased our percentage of teachers with master's degrees over the past 5 years from 40% of our teaching staff to right at 49% of our teaching staff this year have a master's degree or beyond in their education. And so I would anticipate for that number to go up. The number of new course proposals and requests we get on a monthly basis. So I applaud our staff for always pursuing their own learning and look for that to improve and continue. Another area that I think is important for us to recognize and to think about is in relation to on the third page staff retention information. As we conduct annual exit feedback interviews with folks, looking at the themes to address. We have talked about this in a number of years, but we know that one of the things that has been a pinch point for staff are folks that are spread across multiple buildings, and being able to reduce the number of positions split across buildings is one of the reasons why we have moved forward with our passing of the bond referendum and moving towards building our elementary school number 1 and elementary school number 2 in an effort to be able to have 4-section buildings that require full staffing in related arts and will allow us to, again, reduce that number of positions split across our elementary system. The final, I guess, celebration that I would mention before taking any questions is next week we will open up our 5th annual administration of the Gallup Q12 Employee Engagement Survey. And so we'll have an opportunity to extend our trend data with the Q12 in our 5th administration this year. Things that you had questions about for Maggie or I or in the report?
One of the questions I have is in kind of in respect to the conversation that, some parents brought in tonight. When you talk about like our number of teachers with 5 or less experience is that what we're looking for? Are we seeking teachers? Are we more so opening up to teachers with 5 or less years of experience? Because we have 147 is that number. And that says to me, correct me if I'm wrong on this, please, but those are teachers that likely need more coaching, likely need more guidance during those years. And with our turnover that we're seeing right now, do you feel like those are connected at all? Internally. So then you jump up to your 16 to 20 years of experience and those numbers start going down pretty significantly. So is that an area of concern that maybe we need to like?
I guess we have worked, especially over the last 2 years, as we look at our applicant pool across the whole district, in making sure that we're hiring teachers with a variety of experiences, and making sure that maybe we're hiring folks that have 3 to 7 years of experience in another district. We do hire people right out of college, but I think my encouragement to principals is always to identify who they feel is the absolute best candidate for our students, and to bring that person forward as a recommendation.
So, okay, I guess my question more specifically is, do you think those areas, those are connected at all? That, like, if they're seeing the turnover, is it maybe connected to our, I don't know that it, I think teachers coming right out of college are probably, potentially fantastic, but when you look at those teachers that are a little bit more experienced in handling, when we're talking about room clears, and we're talking about students with high level behaviors, are we maybe, is it just something that we could look a little bit closer?
Absolutely, I think so. I think, we've talked about this with some of our data in the past too, just around like the number of maternity leaves that we see. So I mean, to me, that's reflected in that table. When you look at like 2014, 2015, the number of staff in the area from 21 to 25 years through 31 plus years. Obviously, we've experienced just kind of a natural turnover in our staffing. I think we had 5 to 8 years ago, we had a bubble in our system of teachers that had 25 to 45 years of teaching experience, and we have seen, the early retirement year is the biggest year, where we had 20 retirements that year. We've received four notifications of retirement this year, and so I think that's where we have to be cognizant of making sure that we're being thoughtful about, as we bring people in, are we bringing in a diverse population, age-wise, experience-wise, background-wise?
And do we have the guidance to kind of, to connect them with what they need to? And teachers with less years of experience are less expensive, quite frankly. So I want to make sure we're not like getting.
Thankfully, we're in a position where, like I said, we can encourage our principals to say, go find the absolute best person you can hire and bring that person forward to the board. And that's a great place to be. And we know that that's what the board expects us to do, is to hire the very best person we can find for a position. In some cases, that very best person may be, especially if it's a unique licensure or an area where we have a shortage. We've had positions where, we've had single-digit applicants and maybe only 1 or 2 people that are actually fully certified to teach that. And so that person may have 20-some years experience, and they are an expensive single hire. In other areas, we'll get 75 to 100 applicants that are fully certified for the position. So, and that's a challenge for every district in the state. There's some unique licensure, some shortage areas.
Sure, but I guess to kind of build upon what Sarah is saying there, to use Valerius as an example, where there clearly has been some holes in the first and second grade there for the last few years, or turnover. And yes, we want to hire the best candidate. I guess, what are we promoting to actually get the more experienced or the better candidate in there? Because it's clearly cycling.
And once we get them there, can I?
So for Valerius in general, so the past 3 years, 3 of the 4 kindergarten and first grade teachers have remained the same. One person moved from first grade to another grade level in the building. So at Valerius, when you look at specifically like the last 5 years, I think there's a combination of circumstances related to retirement and unique personal circumstances. And I do think that I can think of a couple hires there that have had master's degrees, that have had a couple years experience in another district. And so I do think we've tried to not just pigeonhole and say we're going to hire one type of candidate, and tried to spread that out, thinking about specifically the supports for maintaining and people feeling they have that support. Denise, I think maybe you can talk a little bit about beginning teacher leadership communities and what Jill and the instructional coaches do to support beginning teachers.
I would say real quick before this, that we've seen, I would say visually, like even if we definitely considering what Valerius is saying, but also if we think about Jensen and I'm sorry, I can't remember, I think maybe, was it Karen Akers or Olmsted? We've seen some turnover there, but then also like in that model teacher position, like we've seen a high level turnover, what I would consider, several resignations from those positions also. So like if there could be, my request would be that there is a plan in place to retain some of those individuals because if the model teachers are turning over and then some of our newer teachers are turning over and then we're seeing, if our families are feeling it at home, like we're missing some, definitely there's a gap somewhere is it fair to say?
So far this year, we've had 4 retirements and 8 resignations. And as I said, last year we hired 32 new teachers and that was a 92% retention rate. And that's very typical of where we have been for the past 5 to 7 years. I think, is Valerius seeing a more significant number right now compared to other buildings at this particular moment? Yep, they have. I don't know that will wash out by the end of the year. And so I think thinking about where we are in relation to where we will end up, with right now having 12 people not returning, given our past history, you can expect to see probably 20 more resignations or retirements between now and the June board meeting. And so I guess thinking about the context of that's reflective of our 90 to 92% retention rate that we've had for the last 5 to 10 years.
And, it's a newer board, and so maybe it's more concerning to us.
Sure, no, absolutely. That's why I just think putting it in context.
In the past, but I guess one of the things, one of the comments I heard one time is, well, people are, maybe they're seeking a better option or whatever. And what the feedback that I recall us given at the time is we want to be that better option here. So we want to retain, like if there's something that can, I'm kind of putting it out there too, is there has to be something we can do to better coach or better prepare our staff for what's happening in their classrooms or in the building.
Absolutely. And I think, I guess I would also say, I think that honestly, I think our retention issue is not just a district issue, it's a community issue. When our young teachers can get online and find hundreds of potential homes in a neighboring district that they can afford, and maybe 4 or 5 homes that are actually in our boundary, we have been a farm system for Waukee Community School District. And a significant number of teachers who leave us between their about 5th year of employment with us and their 10th, their children are becoming school age, and they have an opportunity to work in the district where their kids are about to start kindergarten, and they take it. And so making sure that that our community is a place that people can find a house where they want to live, where they can put down roots. We want to be a school district to work in of choice, and I think we want to be a community of housing of choice. And with honestly, with Johnston and Grimes and Waukee as our neighbors, that's a challenge when they can find a reasonably priced home and have lots of choices rather than maybe one or two white choices in the price range.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to kind of back up for a second, just so I understand the process in filling these. It's done at the school level where the principal basically picks the candidates and makes the recommendations. Is that how that?
The principals work, they have the primary responsibility for screening applicants, for completing reference checks. They communicate frequently with Maggie and I through that process, and we assist through that process. They bring in generally work with people in their building to have one or two people sit in on the interview process, a grade level teacher, maybe a special education teacher, a couple other people, and then they'll typically call us and talk through and get some feedback about who they believe is the best candidate for their building, and then make a recommendation, yes. So the principals do bear that primary responsibility.
I want to clarify the model teacher resignations. When you see those, they're only resigning from the model teacher portion of their job. They're not leaving the district.
Right, but those.
And that turnover, I mean, before we had model teachers, we just had building leadership team members who were part of UCALT, and that turnover really is not any different than what it has been over the years. When a teacher takes on a teacher leadership position, that's extra contract days, it's lots of extra nights or early morning meetings, and sometimes sometimes they're just tired of doing that, or they're ready to move out so that somebody else can take that position, or their family circumstances say, you need to stop being gone so many nights and early mornings every month. So that the model teacher turnover is actually not a really bad thing. The more people that we cycle through those teacher leader positions, the more people are getting that leadership experience, extra training, extra learning, extra opportunities that are going to benefit their students no matter what, no matter whether they stay in that position for the rest of your career here or not.
It could become an issue though if that 5 and less, if those teachers with 5 or less years of experience, if that number continues to grow and you see those other gaps, or those other 6 to 10, 11, and so forth, if they continue to decrease, you are kind of, realistically, it could become an issue. But
you mean as far as refilling those positions?
As far as having model teachers to put into those positions, and then you have, so I just think it's something that as a district, we need to be aware of. And we've brought concern about turnover as a board, previously in mid-year turnover, those kind of things that you don't always see in schools. Sure. So I want our staff happy, because if our teachers are happy, then our kids are happy, and we have a better learning environment. So.
Okay, I'm going to step out of my president role here and point out something that I'm happy that the professional leave area that we can control has been reduced, and I would encourage whoever is in charge of that to be even more vigilant. When I look at that, you can't control sick leave, but we can control teachers being out of their rooms. And I appreciate that it's gone down. I have a concern that the half days are going up. That's better, but it's not really, really better. And if you need to blame the board, I am quite happy to take that responsibility. That green should be as small as the blue, the light blue, or less.
I think one of the challenges that we face in relation to that is the categorical funding.
I understand that, but I still think we need to do the right thing.
No, I agree, and I think I
So
applaud.
if it gets unspent, that's a legislative issue.
I applaud Krista and Maggie for their very diligent work together. It's looking at that on a daily basis.
And a more
To
systemic
be
than just
thoughtful
a
about
vote.
it. Yep.
The other concern that I have, I went back and with the 2 resignations from Valerius, I counted up like 25% of our K-1 teachers are gone in the last 10 months. And that's a concern to me. I don't know why. I have some suspicions it may be an anomaly, just like the heating was.
Sure.
But I have some concerns about what is the cause of that and whether, I mean, just off the top of my head, are we too data focused and we're not focused on the littles? Are we having too many room clears? Are we not looking at a systemic discipline system, which I brought up before? I know that these are not popular questions, but I would deeply appreciate the system addressing this and coming back and talking to us again in 6 months. I know you have PD time. I know I read through all of that stuff. I know that you're reading things. This is an issue that has to be addressed at the early elementary level. And it just has to be, and it will be coming back up because I feel very strongly about it. There's something off. And I don't know what it is. So, okay, I'm back now.
Other questions or things?
And I would say that this one at least agrees with me.
Yep.
I did have one other question, looking on, I guess if you were on that chart again right above, we had the absences, the unfilled teacher absence. And I know we looked at it, I want to say 2 months ago.
I think I sent you
Where we did
information. Yep.
How is the continuation of that January, February? Because I don't think we had that at that point compared year over year. And I guess the second component of that is, are we tallying at the same as we have in prior years? And
Yes, we're collecting the data and tallying it the same way we always have. And then I guess I don't know if
an absence is an absence as far as teacher, no matter the position?
Correct.
Okay, so, and I'm kind of thinking on my feet here a little bit. Say an ESL teacher is gone. Is that part of the absence that would be noted if you can't find something in there?
Correct. It's only the positions that need a substitute though. Correct.
Does
Correct.
ESL need a
Right, the
substitute?
unfilled
Is that-
Like an EFL teacher might not need a.
It depends on,
And
they
how
have,
is that determined, I guess? That's where I'm.
by principal and teacher,
like,
they have the option of tally, of choosing yes or no.
Well, but a couple of years ago, we did put as a district parameters around.
But we changed
all
that
our
this year,
teachers.
right?
Right, but it's still
So
consistent
for
throughout the
instance,
district.
an elementary, typically an elementary ESL teacher would not get a sub because their kids are in regular classrooms
Correct.
versus at the secondary level where they have with kids that are assigned to them for a period where they don't have any place else to go. That would be a sub scenario. If there is a condition where, whether it's because of personal absences or district commitments, like a model teacher, if I'm an ESL teacher and I've been either pulled from my, because they also are the ones that will be the first to be pulled to fill the other spots. So if that's happened a lot, or I've been absent for some other things, they would have the right with their principal to decide, I'd like to request a sub.
Okay.
But again, they would be the last. The classroom teachers are probably going to be filled before that.
Well, of course.
Or
But-
reassigned.
And so I guess, are the ESL teachers being pulled a lot to
They,
fill in on those classrooms because we can't find other subs?
So when it says a filled sub, like in this table here, when it says a substitute needed and the percentage filled, that is filled with a substitute, not filled with one of our employees.
Okay.
So in that table of percent filled and percent unfilled, the percent filled is, if it is filled by an employee in the building, then we consider that unfilled.
Okay.
And so like in that table, January and February have been our best 2 months of the year. And that's pretty typical because we see, what do we have, probably 21, I think 20 to we had about 20 December graduates that we brought in over winter break, got them set up in the system to start subbing with us.
They will likely find positions over the summer and then we're back to. So the first semester is always rougher than the second semester.
Right.
And Krista, did you just reference that our policy changed in the last year for that?
That policy, we met as
Just our
a
practice.
team, probably 3 years ago now to make sure that all the buildings were doing it consistently. And we looked at counselors, basically non-classroom teaching positions and came to consensus with Mark and Maggie, Carrie, at the time, Jason Volmer, our special ed coordinator, and the elementary principals to make sure we were doing that consistently across all 6 of our elementaries.
And we gave back a little more flexibility this year because our sub pool has been deeper and our fill rates were a little bit higher. And so as Carrie described, at giving teachers the option of choosing between, or principals between, yes, I need a sub, or no, I don't. That functionality was given back for that flexibility.
So then
And I would
has
say
that
that there's
skewed
more flexibility
the
than there was,
data?
but I don't want to mislead.
Right. I mean, typically they're not.
The direction at the elementary was still not to request one unless there were extenuating circumstances. So I don't want to.
Right, no, I agree.
So if we've changed our practice and the data is it's looking like we need less substitutes, is it something that the practice changes are masking the need for?
I would say
haven't
the opposite.
needed-
I would say
It's
the
the
opposite is
opposite.
true. Yeah,
Okay.
we've actually probably, with that flexibility, have more positions requesting subs this year that maybe prior would not have.
Okay,
But yeah, you're right, the practice would have changed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
It won't be your problem. The update. Unless you want to come back with the Cora.
I have a template that I'm sure you'll see again.
Okay. All right. Revisiting suspension data and culture issues.
So we had talked about that, it's done a month and a half ago. And that there was some confusion about where it was supposed to be on the agenda. As a district, we are continuing to look at opportunities specifically through our measurement team about kind of where it makes sense to regularly review and look at the data. But beyond that, I don't have additional things to share than what I shared last time, but I can either accept questions, and if I'm able to answer them here, I can, or there's certainly things that either with that group or with a different appropriate group, we can continue to look at.
Not to speak to you, but isn't that one of the things on U Code on Thursday as well to discuss?
Right, so that's most likely where it will show up is in those data sets that UKIL looks at each year specific to their buildings.
But you're thinking about the measurement team meeting on Thursday, and it said you killed in the title.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So that's likely one of the avenues where that could be a regular reflection piece.
So I would have just like a couple of questions, like in reference to this data. So kind of again, I think this all ties to, like, from my lens anyway, looking at it, it seems to tie together. When you look at our highest number of suspensions, I'm not like gonna break down the specific populations. I'm just gonna go with like the low socioeconomic students, because I think that like it could spread again across the board, but or across the chart here. When I think about, so I don't even really know specifically what my question is, but when we're addressing behavior and we're addressing, like, and I hear our parents talking, and then I hear the concerns that are coming forward. Are we missing something in our buildings? Like, are we lacking, support staff? Are we lacking, our response, I'm just gonna use the elementary, that the 75% of the suspensions come in our lowest socioeconomic sector of students. So already they're coming to the table with an additional set of concerns that have to be addressed. And then are we putting them into the classrooms where they're not, where they have teachers that are not well equipped to handle, the concerns that they already are, addressing? And what, are we missing something? Because then, the numbers aren't like through the roof or whatever, but those issues are going to grow as those kids grow and they move into their next buildings. And one of the things that you had said last time when we talked, Carrie, was that when you were presenting at the meeting, is that we're looking to address all kids through our I don't remember specifically how it was said, but the approach right now that you guys are taking is to address all concerns collectively. But I think in a sense, we probably, do we need to start breaking down make sure that our staff has a full understanding of the behavior of low socioeconomic students, of our diverse populations that are present in the district? Because the way I heard what you were saying is, we are saying these are all students and we deal with all concerns the same way, but students,
I think absolutely. So for instance, the low socioeconomic, I agree, is a concern as well. And so that was the first place that we started to do some work. So last summer really was the first work of that, where the leadership, so both principals and coaches, were involved in a book study around Paul Gorski's teaching students of poverty. And
you said our leadership and
the instructional coaches.
Okay. And how's that getting to our class? How is that hitting our classroom?
I'm not sure it is yet.
Okay.
And so
we may be behind.
I think always that, and probably more so than we have in the past, that it is important to start to look at our data more intentionally and determine what that means for us. I think we've done a really good job of looking at reading as a whole group, or looking at math as a whole group, but really starting to think more now about digging into what our specific population data looks like. I think that is definitely a good area for us.
And ensuring that the learning that is being done through leadership and the administration is hitting those teachers, right, or in the classroom.
And so right now, each year as we look at our pillars and we look at the data that has been broken out on each building's report card, it hasn't been broken down in this way. And so that really is the conversation, the measurement of, okay, what's that next step that we're ready to take on? And part of it is making our data accessible to people. So even as early as, I will share one of my peeves when I first came, is the idea of a student information system being used even on a regular basis was not being done. So we're still not at a place where, Catherine's talked about really that that the same type of incident means this as it means here. But at least now we're all using the system. And so I just think, I know it's slower than maybe what people would like, but I think that we need to be really thoughtful and make sure that those supports are in place along the way. So while we talk about having these needs, that's right behind the conversation of, you know, we can't have teachers out of the classroom and we have to reach all of these goals. Well, we can't, you don't just send out an email and say, here's your new system, go do it. It really takes collaboration and learning, and so just making sure that it's done thoughtfully, but I in no way disregarding that it's important and that yeah, I mean, I would never sit here and say that we are the model of treating people not from a deficit mindset, and yeah, our population is changing, and particularly in the low SES. In the last few years, that's been one of our largest growing populations. And so, yeah, we're going to keep working on it. We're certainly not where I would hold us up and say this is what everybody in the metro area should be doing.
Right. And just giving as much time to or a fair percentage of time to be, you know, to training on classroom behavior and classroom management, and addressing the changing demographics that we give or kind of expect on the academic piece as well. I think because behavior is going to drive the learning, and so.
The other piece that, and I will thank Denise for helping lead us a little bit, is just analyzing what are we doing in the area of social and emotional learning, and as a district, what can we do together as our next step of making sure that is getting down to the classroom level as well, and that it's being done in a consistent manner. So I think that we have started work that will be very beneficial, but that's just where we're at on the continuum of where we are.
Is there a certain percentage of professional development that the teachers and staff do that's geared towards processes supporting a positive climate?
So the focus, there are district days of professional development, which are typically related to curriculum adoptions or the standards reference grading, those types of things that are more of a district aspect. And then the building days are determined by the leadership teams of the principal and the teacher leaders based on their data. So we have probably 3 buildings that have spent pretty significant time on PBIS. We have 1 building that has spent significant time on SABRS. And so they've done that based on the data that they looked at and the needs that they identified within their building. So there has not been previously district directive in terms of some of those social emotional aspects like there has been, you know, like for science, they got new science, we're all learning the same science, and it's they're all getting the same message or the same training or the same practice opportunities.
So what are your thoughts, Carrie, on the district implementing some sort of mandated socio-emotional learning? Is that?
I'm not fond of mandated, but I am very fond of the work that we've started in terms of what pockets do we currently have and how can we come together and be more consistent across buildings in implementing whatever it is. So I would not stand here today nor have the background in all of them to know if the framework, if we should be looking at the leader in me, or we should be looking at PBIS, or we should be looking at responsive classroom. And I think all of those are really positive programs, but it would be nice to get to a place where we're able to do that learning together and have a single framework
To narrow that down and do
that's
it.
guiding our work, and then we can start to do some of those building to building comparisons and really find out what's working well for people, and then let's replicate that. And right now, because we do have such a variety of approaches, we don't really have that opportunity.
So I would like to recommend that you continue that effort. We've talked about this before, and again, we have the opportunity, since we will be reforming new buildings, new cultures. I know part of the payoff for teaching is being the master of your own fate, but I'm not sure in this case it serves students well. When I look at these numbers, I don't remember ever seeing these when I was inside, but when I look at these numbers from 2 years ago, they aren't going the right direction. And I'm not sure exactly how to address that, but I think, this began because of an article in the Des Moines Register last summer where we did not come off looking good, and we were not happy about that. I appreciate that you've taken the time to accumulate all of this. I would strongly recommend that, again, whether or not you're empowered to tell people to do that, coordinating that and saying, it's really, really better for our students to have the same consequences for similar actions, and we agree on those. And of course, as a counselor, totally advocate for social emotional learning. And I would advocate for that systemically, certainly. So I think what we're talking about, we started off, this is a nice envelope, because we started off with talking about Valerius and some obvious issues with room clears and all this kind of thing. I would like to see us discuss systemically how we can deal with different issues and common practice and consequences, and maybe more importantly, proactive measures that we're trying to take. And again, if you need to blame someone, tell them it came from us, because the concern isn't going to go away.
Catherine, is there a date where we can have that we want to follow up on the numbers? I don't know when the suspension data gets published by the state again, or when there's a renewal, just some date, 6 months, a year, some date where we're not, this isn't getting built, this isn't getting lost in the system.
So can I suggest that maybe this would be something for us to talk about goal setting wise for next year's strategic plan? And then that we would make that part of our, our data shares with the strategic plan. If this, it is, I don't want to say if it is a priority for this board, that I'm not sure what the goal is yet, but if it is reducing the gap in school suspensions, out of school suspensions, all suspensions, if it's reducing the total number of, whatever that goal is, knowing that that's a priority for you, I've got that on the radar already for when that's not a current goal in our strategic plan pillars.
The ultimate goal is to reach all teach all, right? I mean, like, that's where we're at with this, and we're not hitting those marks if we're leaving kids behind, essentially, or if some students, if students are outside of the educational environment.
Right. And so I think that what we'll want to do very carefully in setting goals like that, though, will want to be that we aren't artificially meeting them, right? That we aren't suddenly just saying no suspensions.
That's not the intent. We talked about that last time. The intent is not to say.
Sarah, we're saying the same thing.
Right.
So what I'm suggesting to the board right now is this an item you would like to see appear on the strategic plan pillars that come to you in June with both goal proposal and also strategic action proposal, which is already something that's on the radar and being worked on.
Yes, please, I would appreciate it.
I have a weird question. Has the staff seen this data?
So it's been in the board packet for the last.
Yeah, but actually discussing it as a staff.
I would guess that varies by building, that some leadership teams.
I
So for
would
instance,
believe that there would be some concern.
I know that there are some buildings, particularly those that have been doing the PBIUS study, who do have teams, but that's part of the work that they do,
Right.
is looking at their data on a monthly basis. There are other buildings that probably do not.
Yeah, I'd really love to see this be an initiative that's also coming from the bottom up. If people are saying this is needed and help them buy into it. And if you don't know the reality, that maybe it's an issue.
And the important thing with that is the support, because it's easy if you don't have the lens to blame versus think about what barriers are.
This is not blaming. This is saying we have an issue systemically.
Right, but as a, so the typical would be well, if kids don't want to be suspended, they shouldn't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Well, no,
No, we moved beyond that. That is not going to cut any ice here.
Right. So just making sure that those supports are in place.
Thank you. Thank you for showing back up. And
So we'll talk about it again, it sounds like in June, and then we have it.
maybe we will
To
have
follow up
another.
on Stacy's, when will the next data set be available for? I mean,
Yeah.
we have semester one suspensions here, I assume it's pretty quick.
So,
upon completion.
I pull the data quarterly, and that goes into the scorecard on plan base, and principals. So each principal has access to their data. Actually, they have it in real time, but we capture
Sure,
it quarterly.
right.
And so, there's that, or you could do semester, you could do at the end of each year. It really is, it's available. This is not something that we have to wait on the state to produce for us. That's something that I at any time can provide. So
when would be
what
realistic,
would you
like for 18?
The end of the school, could we see it again at the end of the school
Of
year?
this
as
school
some
year.
point, Kara? 'Cause I think we're gonna have a particularly interesting time in our district coming up with the blending of students into buildings who we could see more, this
Cramming a
could,
lot of bodies in the
yeah,
couple of buildings.
yeah, and I'm concerned for those kids, and we don't wanna see them lose a couple of years of learning opportunities, but it's.
So June, you want to
Yeah.
take another
I would
look?
like to.
Yeah.
I won't have it June.
No.
Because Will and Doreen will still be in session during the June.
July. First available, July.
Okay, thank you. Okay, strategic plan update.
I've got the PowerPoint. Catherine, are you driving right now?
I can be.
And Dina's driving.
Dina's driving.
I am not driving.
Oh,
No.
I
Dina's
thought
up
you
here.
I can remove myself from this picture.
That's what I was gonna ask. Would you rather that I do that so that I can just
Yes.
click without having to sound bossy? Click now, click now. All right, we are going to move through some of this a little bit more quickly this time and get more to the meat of the update, because this is the third strategic plan update for this year. So I am assuming that you all kind of have these first few memorized, but just remembering that this is just about transparency, making sure that you all know how we're working through the plan that you approved back in June. Nothing new about the format. Our next presentation will be June 10th. At the June 10th meeting, that will mostly just be like the meeting before, whatever that last May meeting is, getting you all the data reports that we have available then. Remember, we won't have, there'll be a lot of end of year reports that we still don't have at that point. You'll get those in September on those scorecard for the district and every building and department. So we'll get all those data reports in May, And we'll have some kind of a draft of the strategic plan for you in May, with the final one brought to you at the meeting on June 10th. So that June 10th meeting, strategic plan update will really be about approval of the 1920 strategic plan. But we do plan to have some kind of a draft for you in May to react to, so that we really can do approval on June 10th. So tonight, we'll just talk real quick, see if anybody has questions about data reports that were there. And then Mark, under the safety and well-being pillar, the rollout of the emergency or the EOP for this year included Mark and Dina did a lot of work together to get common emergency plans created, a template created for our buildings to be using next year. And then I'll be speaking to the leader development and professional learning that we've been doing with various groups of leaders this year. So that's where the arrows are pointing to all the different data and strategic actions that you're seeing tonight. And then the slides that we use consistently with our staff to remind everybody that we don't use data as weapons, and that our data is to be used for work, or to make improvements, to do things, not to just look at and enjoy. I have a strikeout on number 5 because I accidentally left that in from the last strategic plan update. So that is a little different than the slide that you have on your computers. But the other 8 items were in the board packet last month or last meeting and then this meeting. Were there any questions? I don't think that any of that was new for you. All right, Mark.
All right. Maggie's going to give you a copy of the draft emergency building plan template. I am going to ask that you return those to me when we're done today, just because I think it is a document that has some sensitive information, and want to make sure that we're keeping it confidential and keeping it in a safe place. So after I'm done talking through, I'll collect them back and take care of them. So last May and June, you approved the District Emergency Operations Procedures Manual. If you remember, that was a 78-page document that was incredibly comprehensive in scope and information. Even before the EOP was approved, our buildings have always produced annually a building emergency plan that details fire, tornado, gets into specifics about students with maybe special needs in the building that have unique needs during emergency plans. And one of the things that has been our practice has been that building template or that building plan has been developed over the summer, and then it has been turned in to the superintendent's administrative assistant. So we have a copy of that over here. But up until this template that you have in front of you today, our building plans have really been dependent on basically being passed down from the principal before you. And so, for example, I started with a building emergency plan at Olmsted that Larry Jablonski had developed, and I updated that annually, and I passed that on to Elise, and she has updated that annually. As we approved the EOP, we came together as a EOP chair group and identified the development of this template for building plans as really one of our primary action steps we wanted to complete this year. And so thank you very much to Dina, who did a lot of heavy lifting with the development of this plan. And Dina, feel free to jump in at any point and share. But really the first step Dina put together, and then we sat down together and really went through a crosswalk of vocabulary and detail of the EOP and the existing building plans. Julie gave copies of those existing building plans to Dina and I, and we really just walked through and identified where were there inconsistencies, where were there different approaches, where were there even just different language around maybe the same concept, but a different phraseology was used. And so we developed this template or this crosswalk of that information. and then worked to standardize what you have before you. And again, Dina really worked through developing that process, and we walked through and developed that plan. So that standardized building template was developed. We then took that to AC, provided them with a draft copy, and then created a Google form for them to provide feedback to us, and gave them about a month to just go through and to give us feedback about any questions or information that they felt like we should consider in the development of this building template. And so took that feedback and made adjustments to that. Shared that again at an AC meeting, and just to give them one final look. I think maybe Steve has mentioned this to you in his superintendent report at some point in the last few months. This spring or this winter, we had a meeting with officials from the city, police, and fire. We shared this template with them and asked them that day to provide us additional feedback, and took that feedback and finalized that standardized building template, and shared that one more time with our building leaders as just a final check. And now what you have before you today will be the template that every building principal uses, and what will be sent over to Julie as the school year starts next year. And just our principals have expressed a lot of appreciation, that just that comfort of knowing that they're placing their specific building information into this common template, that they're working in a consistent way with their peers using the same language. And Dina has also then worked on just a front and back handout that would capture some specifics that I'm going to share with the director team tomorrow. That if you think of kind of your flip chart or your plan on a page for teachers of what happens in an evacuation, what happens in a lockdown drill, that we'll be finalizing that document as well here before the end of the school year, and having those things in place for training and for moving forward. In our meeting with Urbandale Police and Fire, we talked about, and I think again Steve has talked a little bit about this, but Stop the Bleed training as an opportunity for some learning for staff this summer, for people that are willing to engage in that training and be trained people at their buildings, and then some consistent training involving Urbandale PD as we get into our back to school days in August. So questions about what you see in the plan? Dina, anything you can think of that we should add?
The only thing I would add is just that the process of this was really consolidating, the best of all of our building plans. So that's what you're seeing in front of you, and creating a common language. So, a lockdown means the same thing across every single building. And then we also looked at best practices outside of our district. So not only what are buildings currently doing, but what are best practices for crisis and emergency management, in neighboring communities and different districts.
So DE, with the recent legislation, the DE continually updates their safety plan and their school safety documents on the DE website. And so, we pulled some information from there as well.
So this will be in paper copy in every principal's office, or, how are you handling that kind of security?
It will be a controlled release. Okay. And my thinking and what we would, that document would be likely with the principal, with the building secretary, with custodians, and then potentially with, especially like the middle school and high school, just larger stuff, like a safety committee team would have the full scope of the document. The intent for all teachers would be that front and back that really articulates, this is what you do in this situation, this is what you do in this situation. But to monitor how many copies we produce, who has them, and our principals have done that really well. I think they have created, everybody has the red binder, everybody has the yellow folder. And they're collecting those at the end of the school year. They're replenishing, making changes to documents and things like that. But just again, making that more standardized, just more similar to the best of our ability.
Yeah, this is great. It was needed. Nice.
I'll take those back.
I've got the key phrase.
Thank you very much to Dina for her collaboration and working on this.
Thank you.
All right, leader training that we've been engaged in this year. So monthly, our principals and full-time teacher leadership team members and central office administrators meet together. The main focus of our work has been process improvement, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So kind of using the process that Dina and Mark just described with the emergency plans is how we've been approaching things like, I have instructional framework here. It would be more like best practices that we're seeing in classrooms. So what do the best lessons look like that we're seeing? And then also our social emotional learning study. We have our administrative council, which is made up of all principals, administrators, and department leaders in the district. They meet monthly. They've been engaging in a book study of the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is a Covey book. And then some ongoing leader development with Melissa Matarazzo from Studer Education. And then our support services leadership team meets monthly. That team is made up of all of us that are non-instructional leaders, non-academic side of the district leaders. So they've been studying a book called The Outward Mindset. So I'm just going to talk you through very quickly what the learning has been looking like for each one of those teams. A lot of that learning, particularly for the principal, instructional coach, curriculum facilitator for that team, has been addressing a lot of what you have been talking about tonight. So one of the things that we started looking at last year with that principal TLC district administrator team, I read this book called Learning to Improve, How America's Schools Can Get Better at Getting Better. Something that we had identified, that I think all of you have identified and been talking about, is the need for us as instructional leaders in the system to start to get better at identifying our best practice processes and replicating those processes to other places in the district. Basically, what we've learned about in this book is it's really hard in schools because we're really, really complex organizations. It's really hard for us to isolate and say this one thing is going to make this improvement. So if you look just down there at the bottom of this slide there in the italics, what this book really gets to is we need to know currently what's the process that we're using. How are we currently instructing kids? What opportunities are there to make that better? And then we need to check out, like as we're doing those things, are we making it better? How do we know that our results are improving? And so in this book, they referenced a gentleman by the name of Atul Gawande, and he wrote this book called the Checklist Manifesto. And we did not like book study that book. These are just resources that I've used to bring back to that team to study process improvement. And the Checklist Manifesto, it's the subtitle is How to Get Things Right. And Atul Gawande talks about how in complex organizations, the information, and I'm going to look at Catherine because for those of us that have been in education for many years, we know that the knowledge in our field of education has grown exponentially, right? Like at the beginning of my career 20 years ago, we didn't have Common Core. I didn't have standards and benchmarks handed to me. In fact, I didn't even have like a reading basal. I mean, I had nothing, no teacher guide, nothing. To the point now where, I mean, we've identified exactly what it takes to get these great results. And then we throw in social emotional learning, and how to have behavior management. And so at the same time that all the knowledge is exploding about how we can do our work better, our students are also living in a time where the knowledge is exploding. And so all of this makes everything more complex. And Atul Gawande, my favorite quote that he has is this: making systems work is the great task of our generation as a whole. Complexity requires group success. And so we really started looking at how do we need to collaborate to find our best practices, to articulate our best processes so that people can continue to replicate them. So this has become known as the fire slide amongst the principals, and it's referred to often because it's when we can say now, oh, we're doing the fire slide thing. So in the handbook, this comes directly out of there. And they say, by definition, improvement requires change. Unfortunately, in education, change too often fails to bring improvement. Even when smart people are working on the right problems and drawing on cutting-edge ideas, believing in the power of some new reform proposal and propelled by a sense of urgency, educational leaders often plunge headlong into large-scale implementation. Invariably, outcomes fall far short of expectations, enthusiasm wanes, and the field moves on to the next idea without ever really understanding why the last one failed. Such is the pattern of change in public education. Implement fast, learn slow, burn goodwill as you go. And so this has been a really powerful thought for our team. Are we just jumping to the next initiative? Are we giving ourselves time to really understand what it is that we're working on and get good at what we're doing? And so then this is just the idea that we need to slow down, learn fast, implement slow, implement in small packets, test ideas out on small groups before we're going too fast. And then another idea that we've been looking at is this idea about how organizations learn. And so if you look at this diagram, the idea that all of those A's are individuals in an organization. And so each individual has their own level of knowledge about the work that they're doing. And then they do B-level learning when they collaborate with the people that work around them. And then we're sharing knowledge and getting better together, right? That's what collaboration is. And then this organizational learning is thinking about C-level learning. How are we sharing that knowledge across parts of our organization, or better yet, across other organizations that are similar to us? So this is really the model that we've been trying to follow with various items of importance to that team. And so one of those has been social emotional behavioral learning. This is what Carrie was referring to a little bit ago. So back in probably October, we had a time at an administrative council for leaders to bring the themes for improvement that they've been hearing from their staff from rounding. So you all know about our rounding practices. So leaders consolidated their themes, the stuff that needs improvement, and then we consolidated those together at an administrative council meeting. And one of the biggies that the principal team in particular highlighted and prioritized was the need to start getting on the same page with our social emotional behavioral learning. So I agreed to take on facilitating this through the, we don't want to just be jumping initiative to initiative to initiative, and then assuming that we had a lot of great knowledge in our room already, and people who had been through various trainings and were experts at different things, we just weren't doing a good job of networking that learning. So we had this visual, this is the PBIS behavioral MTSS pyramid from AEA when they do that training. And so we talked about that bottom level is the safe, caring, healthy foundation, and then universal or tier 1 in the green. All of that green is the work that we should be doing for all students all the time. And then, of course, we have our tier 2 targeted, tier 3 intensive intervention thinking for social emotional behavioral. So we began this study with each building identifying which of those, we had all of those words, all of that stuff. We began with, so where are you? What are you implementing? What do you think you're implementing at a high level? And what's getting you good results? And so then we consolidated all of that data together and did a little bit of a data analysis together. So where do we see that we need to work? It was very clear that that needed to be universal tier 1. That's where we started to see lots of variation in both implementation and in results. And so I think that that's exactly what you've been talking about today. So the team then at the next meeting began working on operational definitions for each one of those items. Are we sure that we're all in agreement about what these things mean? We went through quite a lengthy process to get everybody's input on all of those, and those have been sent to Heartland now to have them provide us some feedback and do some correcting or yeah, you're way off base here, or yes, you all know what this means. And then the other thing that we've agreed to do as a whole team is a book study of the book, All Learning is Social and Emotional. It's a new book out from Fisher and Fry. And what hooked me was I read an interview with them about the book on it, just like an Ed Week thing that came through my email. And the line that got me was that it said something to the effect of all teachers need to recognize, or all adults in the building need to recognize that every interaction they have with a student is either building or tearing down their social emotional development. And so that's sort of the premise of the book. How do we make social emotional development part of every day in a classroom, not a separate thing that we do for 15 minutes at the end of every day or the beginning of every day or whatever, 2 times a week or whatever that is. How do we start to build just a culture of everything that we're doing, every interaction that we're having with the children in our buildings is social and emotional. So I know the team is really excited to get going on that learning and start to develop some common learning together and at the same time pull out, Carrie talked about all the various bits of learning that have happened everywhere, and we want to be sure that we're honoring that too. So now I'll move on to our administrative council, who's been reading the 4 disciplines of execution. That quote there at the bottom of there, once you've decided what to do, your biggest challenge is getting people to execute it at the level of excellence you need, is really what that book's about. So the book, the 4 disciplines are focus, leverage, engagement, and accountability. This has been you can see like our posters back there, some of the work that we've done. I wouldn't say that this has been earth-shattering new learning. It has been stretching some knowledge that we had into some new avenues and shifting a little bit of thinking about the importance of a few of those components. Also with our administrative council, I feel like this slide and the next one, I'm not going to go through them, but these are the 2 things that really summarize what Melissa Matarazzo has been doing with us this year. So Studer talks about these 5 ways to have a high reliability organization. And then these are the blue are kind of the skills, the different skills that we've been learning to create that high reliability organization. The other piece that she has spent quite a bit of time with us practicing and working on is the types of professional conversations to create engaged employees. So relationship building, coaching, and then compliance-based conversations. And then finally, our support services leadership team has been reading The Outward Mindset, and I'm just going to make my plug for this book. Probably the best book I've read in I don't even know how many years. This is amazing. It's put out by the Arbinger Institute. This is not a school book. This is a life, personal and professional book. It's about how to approach the people around you with an outward mindset. So all I did here, and I'm not gonna go through and read them all to you. I just pulled out kind of the big quotes that have been impactful for that team. and put them on slides for you. I guess partially I'm just kind of want to sell the book. Look at my friends, but
You're live tonight, so you
it is really a phenomenal read. Like I said, both professionally and personally. I might even say life-changing if it speaks to you at the right moment. It's an excellent read. And that team, boy, our conversations have been so rich about that. Thinking a lot about, in particular, this bottom quote up here: inward mindset people and organizations do things. Outward mindset people and organizations help others to be able to do things. And those are two different states of mind. And then the other one, I think especially for the support services team, those leaders are excellent at their job. And the authors talk about a blind spot for those that are really excellent at their jobs is obsessing over the quality of my own work and valuing the quality of my own work over the value that my customers or the people around me are receiving from that work. And I think that's been a big part of our conversation. It doesn't matter if it's really great work if it didn't meet the customer's needs. So that's all I've got. Anybody have questions? We really love our learning together time.
The only question I have is when does this reach staff in terms of
when does what reach staff?
The different levels of learning you guys are doing as an administrative team?
So a lot of what we're doing is leader development. So it's making them a better principal, a better instructional coach.
So
It's kind of that team's professional development, monthly professional development.
Okay. So if you're talking about the social, emotional, behavioral learning, right now, those leaders are trying to get ourselves on the same page so that we can make some decisions about what is going to be common learning for all staff.
And do the buildings have tier level teams, tier 1, tier 2? Tier 1 essentially would be formed by tier 2 and tier 3 teams.
So
not yet, that's what we're learning. I'm gonna go back to
some do.
Yeah, some
the
do.
PBIS schools do.
Okay.
Yes, but that's the thing, what we're doing here is not about me teaching them about social, emotional, behavioral learning. That's about that team networking to figure out what's happening where. So some of the problems that you've identified, they've identified for themselves, and they're trying to figure out now, what do we need to do that's common? So that's where we started, was that tier 1. We've started trying to figure out, do we all mean the same thing when we say transition skills? Do we all know what that means? And is that a common vocabulary just amongst the leadership team members first?
The reason I brought up that slide, the tactics for high reliability organizations are all tactics that all of us employ through our always actions and different things with staff. So rounding, for example, aggregating the information from rounding to identify that social emotional learning was a need. That's another way, I guess, that the things we're doing are impacting our staff.
And I will say, I believe that outward mindset will be a UKILT read. So all of our teacher leaders, I believe that we are going to, the principals have been asking for the book now. After hearing the support services leaders talk about it in EC, they reference it so often. Now they're asking about it and coaches are asking about it. And so I think that this is going to become a model teacher, instructional coaches, everybody on that team will read and start to look for application together. Other questions? All right. Look for data that we have, new data that we get in between now and the end of May, and drafted the strategic plan. We'll get that out to you, and definitely make sure that you're looking in that information only section so you can provide input or feedback ahead of that June 10th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Is this just kind of an
Yeah.
information only?
Well, it was in the last board meeting or 2 board meetings ago, I believe. I don't have a new update other than our testing starts April 15th. We have our last site coordinator meeting on Wednesday of this week. Set spring break, creating sessions and accommodations and troubleshooting some different things, but we've been able to do some problem solving. So we'll have, I haven't
So is it
seen any
staggered?
questions you have. What's that?
Staggered buildings?
Yeah, we have a 4-week administration window. The first 2 weeks are actual administration, so the 15th and the 22nd. The final 2 weeks are makeup. Our high school is not going to start until the 2nd week. Middle school and most of the elementaries are starting the 1st week.
And about how much time does it take to build the building?
Well, it's untimed, which is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we finally realized that standardized tests maybe should be untimed. There are 3 tests that all students in grades 3 through 9 will take. Reading, which is they give us suggested times of 60 minutes. We have some Twitter intel from our friends up in Storm Lake that was a little short for some kids, many kids, that it was more like a 70-minute. Math, 60 minutes. Language and writing is a 120-minute test, but it has 3 hard stops or hard breaks, so we don't expect kiddos to sit for 120 minutes by any stretch of the imagination. And our science test, which is only for kids in grades 5, 8, and 10, is also a 60-minute test. And we found out today we have 2 teachers from the high school that are going to participate in the standard setting studies, so we're going to get their perspectives, which I think is exciting. What's that? Behind the curtain, yeah. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but if you want to do it, go for it.
Well, because I think
it would be interesting to learn from.
I found this really interesting, and I'm imagining every educator in the room will too, that I didn't realize that they didn't already know what was proficient, right? So, and they're not, and it's not just a bell curve, here's proficient. The teachers that are going to do the standard setting are looking at the actual items on the assessment and saying, this would mean proficient. If they do all of these, if kids can get all of these things right, or whatever % of these things right, we would say they were grade level proficient. And then that will be compared to the old bell curve, which I found really interesting.
Thank you. Any other questions? We bring forth
I'll move to open the consent agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Hi.
Any questions on any items in here? Clarifications?
Is it fair to say we already covered questions on the personnel brief?
Still have questions?
If you still have questions that you'd
Just
like
as
to
long as
ask,
they're
please
coming
do.
back, as long as we're gonna kind of discuss again in 6 months where we're out like that. Turnover.
What is that? Just curious. On the bills, what is Naviance? It says course planner,
Guidance.
10,000. What is
That's
that
our
actually?
career system. So part of the CTE overhaul that happened within the last couple of years required districts to use a variety of systems, but Naviance is one of the approved ones. It's what kids start in middle school with their career planning, interest inventories, all of that.
Just interesting.
Yep.
New name catches my eye every once in a while, and I
Okay.
don't know what it is. Okay, thanks.
The state used to provide that service.
They did.
Yeah. But everyone still has to do it. Any other questions? Okay. Okay. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as is. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you. Okay, we don't have anything for a work session except a closed session. So any other matters under 11? So we will quickly do a meeting evaluation. And then, do you have a paragraph to read? Or do you want me to just read this?
And just a reminder, don't look at the scale on the small sheet, look at the one on the highlighter, the sheet cover one.
Just to inform you, we're going to be moving into a closed session. We do that typically when it involves a personnel matter. This is not in any way an emergency. It's just to protect the privacy of the individual. So that means you all have to go away. Any students who need a signature? There's a number of staff people here. We'll be happy. Give me the white